Can you all hear me? Okay, thank you. I'd like to do that. It would have to be Monday. Let's talk about that, Sarah, the day that, because I have a Tuesday night class already. But I'm certainly open to doing the webinar Monday night. I'll probably record one Monday night. So that would give us warmer. I'd like to do that. So let's talk about it. It's a good question. Well, let's talk about it. Again, hoping you all can hear me okay. Good, okay. I'll have my graduate student do that, Sarah. Sorry. In fact, if you want, just send her an email, though. But I'll see her tomorrow. I may see her tomorrow. I'm fairly sure I will. If I do, I'll just have her do it, or I'll have Somi do it. Yeah. Everybody did pretty well. We'll talk about that. Yeah, let me put that up here, too. Elliot, how are you? Hope you can hear okay. Good. Okay. Did we, I'm just saying, did we actually go through third degree price discrimination last time, the calculus? No? Okay, so we'll do that and we'll compare it to second because it's interesting. And we'll compare it to monopoly. So good. Thanks, Eric. Elliot. Hopefully, it's been relatively cold here. We had quite a rainy day yesterday. Hopefully the weather's a little bit better where you guys are. Yeah, I forgot, Laura. I didn't look at our rain gauge. I got to remind myself to do that tomorrow. I don't know how much we got. I know it was well over an inch because it rained most of the day yesterday. I'm going to wait about one more minute, and then we'll get going. There's a good group here already, so I don't want to delay you. Got to make sure everybody can hear me okay. So hopefully you can all hear okay. I was just looking at the video of me. It's weird how the stripes of my shirt kind of make my shirt look weird. Does it look weird to you? Does my shirt look weird to you guys? Yeah, it looks really weird. Kind of annoying. Sorry. Okay. Looks fantastic. Okay, good. It's actually just kind of, well, it's kind of red and green and white striped or something, I think. I don't buy my own clothes. My wife buys all my clothes, so I don't know, because I'm not very stylish, and so she buys all the stuff and basically tells me what to wear, which is fine, because that's why I enjoyed being in the Army. All you had to do in the Army was know whether it was winter or summer in order to know what to wear. Well, let's start with number 6 first, unless there are any questions. Okay. So I think everybody did very well. I was pleased. I mean, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. It wasn't a particularly hard exam, but students have done badly on it in the past. But you guys did very well, so I'm happy. I think some of you, I mean, nobody failed. I think a few of people who were traveling stuff haven't turned it in, but I think everybody that has turned it in should have the grade. So it's pretty good. We'll probably have, in my opinion, maybe one more exam or 2, depending on what you all want to do. Certainly one more exam on game theory, very much like it's a solution to a game, so that makes it relatively easy for myself and my grad students to grade it. So the way we graded this exam, 60% of the total weight of the exam was the steps that the answers that you actually got. I think there were 6 different answers. And then the remaining 40% was, did you follow the method? And so that's kind of how it was broken down. So were you methodical using the method that we had talked about? So that's how we came up with it. Okay, so we can check that off. So let me do that. Hang on. So we'll check this off. Put a different color up there. So we'll check off that. So what I want to do is just sort of, in a sense, about thinking where we are right now. So if you think about what we're doing, we're looking at the situation in the main, so that the situation that we are looking at is the situation where the firm has some market power. So I'll just say some power. Okay, now in relationship to what? Setting, price, and quantity. And you'll remember, in the case of competition, the firm had no market power. The industry had the power, but the firm had none whatsoever. So that's the situation that we are looking at now. And we said that within that context, and this is important for you as managers, that within that context then, what we wanted to see was to look at 2A, so I'll put a little A there, using that market power to set a single price for the quantity that we were selling. Okay, that was the standard monopoly situation we looked at. But 2B says, well, are there ways to set more than one price? Okay, more than one price. And the answer was yes, and we looked at 3 situations. We discussed 3 situations. We've looked at 2 of them. The first situation was what we called, so situation A, was what we called first degree price discrimination, and I'll just do PD for price discrimination, and essentially up to the point where price equaled marginal cost, what we would do would be to use our market power to sell at every reservation price for individuals from the highest price along the demand schedule to the price where price equals the marginal cost. Because remember, at price equals marginal cost, I'm still making normal profit. Okay, does everybody remember that? And so if we looked at that again from a graphical point of view, okay, so if we look at it graphically, then here is this linear demand schedule. This is the point where price equals marginal cost. Okay, so that's this point here, right there. And then we were literally talking about setting all of these prices here, just all of them. Okay. Now, as you can imagine, that takes a great deal of information about consumers. In some cases, that information may not be legal, but at any rate, it's quite demanding. But here's the key that we looked at. Okay. So the whole reason for doing it, all right, came down to this issue right here. That if we look at a demand schedule, okay, and we've got something, let me change the color, something price measured in dollars and quantity here, then when we set that single monopoly price and quantity, we did not capture all of this area here that we call consumer surplus. Okay, all of this area here, and the whole reason then for going to this kind of a pricing scheme here, where we had all of these prices up to the point where price equaled marginal cost, then we would be able to earn more total revenue and earn more profit. Okay, does everybody get that? Everybody okay with that? Okay, all right. Now, let's take a look at it another way here. So in this case here, again, where we are talking about setting price again equal to marginal cost, and so there's that situation here, and then at that price, that's the quantity, all right? And so we could talk about, well, what does the demand schedule look like? So we would have some demand schedule would be price equals alpha minus beta times Q. But notice now, I'm going to call this area A, and then I'm going to call this here area B. Notice that all that's happened was, and then let's compare it to monopoly, all right? So we'll come back and compare it to monopoly, okay? So in the monopoly case, where we had marginal revenue, we had marginal cost, okay? Here's our demand. So let me label those things. So again, price, quantity, this is marginal cost, this is demand, this is marginal revenue. Then here's the point where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. So again, this is marginal cost here. And so notice now what happened there was we ended up here, all right? We set that price and quantity, and that is what we captured. But notice again, we left this part out and we didn't capture that part. So that's then clearly why we went to first degree price discrimination, because with first degree price discrimination, then we picked up all of this part here, okay? But now we want to come back and look at our friend second degree price discrimination. So let me change the color here then. Okay, and we'll put A, so now we'll put B. I'll cheat a little bit and put B right here. So second degree price discrimination now, PD, allows us to do two things. I'm going to have to step away in 1 second to start my wife's not here. I've got to start something or she'll kill me. So where we only captured this part here, We left this part uncaptured, this part uncaptured. I'm going to sneak away and do that, so hang on a second. Okay, I'm back. So first degree allowed us to capture all of this. Monopoly only left that uncaptured and this component uncaptured. Now second degree allows us to capture all of this, which we would have done in first degree, but now allows us to capture this component here for some linear demand schedule of that form. Okay, does everybody see now what we're doing? Okay, and everybody understand then the role, the importance or the role that second degree plays then, under the assumption of, again, we have monopoly, we have power in the marketplace. Now that power allows us to do what? Fence or segment the markets in some fashion that's legal. It also then allows us to prevent what's called arbitrage, which means that the customers that we're selling at a lower price to, we have to find some way to prevent them from selling to our customers who would pay a higher price rather than do without, okay? And then third degree price discrimination we'll look at the end of our time tonight, and then we'll have a way of seeing all three of them. And third degree we'll talk about, we'll introduce it tonight, we'll get through it probably tonight. But when we talk about yield management is the way that the airlines and hotels work. Then that's a step down the road a little bit on price discrimination, third degree. Okay, so are we okay? And everybody sort of see where we're going? So now what we want to do is see how this works. Okay. So it works that there are two techniques that we're going to look at. They're not the only techniques, but they're the two that we're going to look at, and generally the most common. So the first technique, so remember now we are in second degree, okay, price discrimination. The whole purpose is to capture, okay, capture more consumer surplus. I'll just use the term consumer surplus, C.S, consumer surplus, okay? That's second degree. So let's take a look again at consumer surplus just a second, just to refresh our memories, okay? Well, let me finish what I was going to say. So there are two techniques that we'll be looking at. One technique, I think we've already talked about, is a two-part tariff. Tariff generally means price. It's an old English word. Two-part tariff, but that's really, what do we mean by that? I mean this part here and that part there. And then another approach, which we call bundling. Okay. Now, bundling can also lead to some confusion because it also, I'm going to list it as a third thing, but in some ways it's not. Also something called tying or tie-in sales. Okay. But all of these are a form of second degree price discrimination, okay, or nonlinear price discrimination. All right, so now let's take one more quick look at consumer surplus. Okay, all right. Now, by the way, before I go on, any questions on all of this? Does everybody sort of see where we are and how this fits in and why we're looking at it, why it matters to us? Okay, that if we have market power, then being able to capture this improves our overall bottom line. If we don't have market power, we can't do it. Right? All right. So let's go back in now and just refresh our memory about consumer surplus, okay, and then develop some interesting formulas, okay. So let me come down here, and I'll come across over here, and then I'm just going to draw in a demand schedule, okay? And then we'll put some labels up here. So again, here we're going to measure price, but it could be anything measured in dollars, really. And again, here we're going to measure something, some quantity, okay? So now, let me just, so draw them this way. Again, the whole purpose, certainly if you, again, remember, certainly if this was marginal cost here, then first degree price discrimination would have captured all of this. That's not what we're looking at now. We're not talking about first degree price discrimination. So let's just say now that we have a demand schedule, so that we have done some regression that you learned in your ECO 578, or if you took the graduate forecasting class, but you should remember it from your undergraduate class, how to do ordinary least squares. And let's say that we now estimated this demand schedule, okay? And then we can write it two different ways. We can write it one way, we can write it one way as P equals, okay, and let me make sure, let me look at what I wrote, yes, 40 minus 0.1 Q. Or we could just reverse it and do it as Q equals 400 minus what? 10P. Okay? So either way, and one is the inverse of the other. So when we're looking at the top one, so what we can say is, at what's the highest price anyone would pay rather than doing without this product, okay, or the price hit so high that nobody would buy? The answer is right here. That there would be 40, okay? And since the slope of this line is 0.1, then we also know, just by the way I set it up, that this would turn out to be around 400. Okay? All right. So now the question is, how do we calculate consumer surplus? Well, we have to calculate it given some quantity. All right? So let's just say, for simplicity's sake, that we're going to set price equal to marginal cost, which is standard, and we're just going to let that be 10 cents. Okay? All right? So no big deal. Now, what does that allow me to do? It allows me then to say that if I know the price is 10 cents, then I can solve the equation, okay, for quantity. And what is the quantity when the price is 10 cents? So let's put the price in there. So when the price is 10 cents, okay, we'll put it right here. When the price is 10 cents, we'll write in 10 cents. Okay? And this is again our friend where, marginal cost equals the price. So when that's the case, all I have to do is solve this version of the equation here, this guy here, and I'm going to do 10 cents, 0.1 there. And if I do that, then what I end up getting is a Q of 300. Okay? So I'll come down here. All right? And then I'm going to say when the price is 10 cents, then I know that the quantity consumed is 300 at that price. Now I want to use this information to help me set, this is again where our friend the two-part tariff comes from, okay? So I'm going to use that to help think about how, because think for a second, looking at it. What I want to be able to do here is using come up with a pricing scheme that allows me to capture all of this area here, okay, leaving no consumer surplus. I want to capture all of this area here in my pricing scheme, okay? So we can also rewrite one of these equations if you want, just to make our lives a little bit easier. We can rewrite it in a generic form. Okay. So the generic form would be that put it in a different color. P equals alpha minus beta times Q. And so that 40 would actually be alpha. Okay. So now the question is, how do I calculate the area under the trapezoid, which essentially is called gross consumer surplus? Okay. And I'm not sure that you remember your trigonometry. Okay. So let me give you a hint in terms of how we go ahead and do that. So we can call this price P1 if we want. We can call this P2, and this is Q here, the 300. So here is Q. Okay. All right. So if you remember your formula, then the way it would work would be that I would take, okay, so let me show you the formula then. What I would take is to calculate gross consumer surplus, I would calculate, P1 plus P2, okay, times Q2, which for us is 300, Q1 is 0, so 300 minus 0 divided by 2 would give me the entire area under the trapezoid. Okay? Well, let's use this version here, because it's just going to give us a generic formula that we can use to calculate the gross consumer surplus. Okay? Now, let me ask you this question just quickly. Why am I doing this? Because I want to capture it. Right? I want to capture all of that consumer surplus in my pricing scheme, and therefore I have to be able to calculate it. Okay? So let's create a new page. And again, let's go back to our generic now. We won't use numbers. Let's go back to our generic scheme. We have some demand schedule for our product that we have estimated as alpha minus beta times Q. That's a linear demand schedule. So again, we're right back looking at this issue here. Okay? All right. So now we want to calculate the area under the trapezoid for some price or marginal cost that we've set. And so what we know is we said, okay, and now we can also, just again to sort of let you know, we can also simply say, okay, P1, P2, we can call that anything that necessarily that we want to call it, okay, but watch. So if we remember the formula, it was P1 plus P2, okay? And again, Q2 minus Q1, Q1 is 0, Q2 is, for us, was 300, so it's just Q, again, divided by 2. But given that we have a linear demand schedule, okay, given that we have a linear demand schedule, we can rewrite this guy here, okay? And given that it's a linear demand schedule, we know what this guy is here, right? Does everybody remember what this is, what P1 is? It's alpha, right? So if the quantity is 0, what's the highest price that would be paid? It's alpha. So again, I can rewrite this as alpha, okay? Now this is price equals marginal cost, but I know what price is, right? It's alpha minus PQ. I mean beta Q, right? All right, so then I have plus alpha minus beta times Q. So remember, all I'm doing is doing this generically and not referring to any price. And I'm just using a generic demand schedule of that form. Okay, that is the form of that demand schedule there. So if I say, okay, so watch, so if I'm using this demand schedule, okay, so here it is. This is price and this is quantity. How do I solve for this guy here? I just simply say, let quantity equal 0. Okay? And the answer is what? That is alpha. Okay? Then how do I decide whatever that price is there generically? Not saying it's 10, not saying it's 100. Okay. I'm just saying that it is a second price. Okay. Well, what would that second price be? P2 would simply be alpha minus beta Q. So that's that price. Our formula here says I just simply add them together. Okay? I just simply add them together. All right? So let's go ahead and do that. And don't forget we're dividing by 2. So now remembering our formula. Okay? So we're letting P1 be the generic alpha. We're letting P2 be the generic alpha minus beta Q, a second price in a linear demand schedule. Okay? And we're letting this simply be Q because coming back here to our demand schedule here, if we let this is Q, this is 0, so this thing here simply became 300, in our example here, 300 minus 0. But looking at, remembering our formula, okay, it's Q2 minus Q1. Q1 is what? Right here, 0. Okay, so that's how we just ended up with Q. Okay. So now what do we have here? Well, we have what we knew. This here is alpha. Okay, fine. So let's put it in. But now what is this guy here? What's this guy? Well, we know what that guy is. He's the second price, which has the generic form of alpha minus beta Q. Okay, that's the generic form of that guy. So now what do we have here? Plus alpha minus beta Q, and of course all of this divided by 2. Okay, now, so what? What is this? What this is this here. The whole area under that rectangle, under the triangle. It's the entire area. But I'm not doing price discrimination. I've already said I have a P2 right here. Okay, so let me change the color. Okay, I already have a P2 here. So coming back, again, using our notation, this is alpha, this is P2. So notice now what I'm going to be able to do. I'm going to define this guy here as just being the gross consumer surplus at some value, some level of output. That's what this is. Okay, so now I want to get a representation of that and that. Okay, so now watch. If I do the following in terms of now setting up, how do I know how to set A and how do I know how to set B? I'm going to do it the following way. I'm going to look at the gross consumer surplus for at some level of output, which we just simply said was 300, okay? All right, which is calculated this way. And now watch. What am I going to subtract from it? I'm going to subtract from it, guess what? The price times the quantity. All right, so if you'll remember our two-part pricing system, we had the fee plus the price times the quantity. That's this part, okay? But now here's the funny thing. All right, not the funny thing, but the interesting thing. So now watch, okay? So let me put it back over, and let's do it in a new page. So what I'm talking about now is this gross consumer surplus. I want to capture all of it at some level of output, okay? So again, looking at what I'm trying to do, okay, I'm trying to set a fee and a usage fee to capture all of that consumer surplus up to this point here, which I'm calling Q, sorry, which I'm calling Q, and this is alpha, okay? So now what am I going to do? What I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to take the gross consumer surplus at some level of output Q, all right, and I'm now going to subtract from it two things. What two things? The first thing is here, which is what? Price times the quantity. This is the usage fee. And then what am I going to subtract out? I'm going to subtract out, are you ready? The fee I decide to charge. Okay? So now minus the fee. Now, here's the issue. That has to have the following relationship, okay? That must be greater than or equal to 0. Because if it's not, if I extract more than the consumer surplus of the whole area under the trapezoid, do you all see the customer won't buy? Right? So if the fee plus the, okay, so remember we talked about it. So if FA, the fee for activity A, plus my usage fee times the amount of A that I used, if that's greater than my gross consumer surplus, then what? I'm not buying any. It's not worth it to me. Does everybody see? So it's this idea here then. It's this idea here then that is the crucial link to understanding two-part tariff pricing. Okay? That is the crucial link to understanding two-part pricing. And I think I want to show you one other thing if I can find it, what I did with it. But I'm not sure I can. All right. Now, a couple of things. So does that roughly make any sense? So how would you approach this? Step one would be to define your gross consumer surplus. How do you know what that is? Given the demand schedule that you have estimated. You have to know something about demand, okay? Then step two would be what? Step two would be I would set price equal to marginal cost, okay? And then step three would be, okay, what would step three be? Any thoughts? Okay, so watch. So watch what we've done. So let's go back and look at our steps. You're getting close, Laura. You're right. You're getting close. But let's see what we haven't done. Okay? So circling up our wagons here. Step one allowed me to define the, sorry, didn't do it for me. Step one allowed me to define that. Agreed? Yes. I define my gross consumer surplus, the whole trapezoid, okay, F plus 1. Step 2 said set price equal to marginal cost, your marginal cost. Now there may be instances where you would set it above marginal cost, but we don't have time to get into those instances. So step 2 then comes back and looks here. So yes, you're right, we need to set the fee, but before we set the fee, what must we determine? What's missing? Yes, excellent, Laura. X area. That's exactly right. We have to come back and determine what our quantity is. Okay? So if you now go back and look at our 2 different forms, okay, of that demand schedule. So coming back here, okay. So what have I just done? I said step 2 is set price equal to marginal cost. I'm going to make a number up. So we're going to set price equal to marginal cost. And let's just say marginal cost equals 10. I'm just making it up. Okay? So now we can solve for the quantity. Okay, so again, remember, step 1 is define gross consumer surplus. Step 2 is set price equal to marginal cost. Okay. Once I've done that, then it allows me to find, so once I know this, once I know that, then I can find this. Okay. Now what can I do? Okay. Now what I can do then is fill in the rest. So I've set price equal to marginal cost, and I made that number up and I said it was 10. Okay. Now what? Based on my reverse demand schedule, okay, my reverse demand schedule is quantity demanded as a function of the price, but I just said I defined the price as marginal cost at 10, so that now gives me the quantity, okay? Then what can I do? I can set, so if you think about now what I'm able to do, okay, so once I've set the price and quantity, then I can come back and solve for everything I need to know, okay? So here's my demand schedule. Here's my setting price equal to marginal cost. I think we said 10, okay? So that was 10, okay? So the first thing I know, given that I know price, and given that I know quantity, I now know price times quantity, okay? Given that I know the price and I know the quantity, I can go back and calculate the gross consumer surplus, okay? Not total revenue, okay? If it was a straight linear demand schedule, you'd be right. But it's not a straight linear because we've set price equal marginal cost. So remember, Elliot, we're here. So we're looking at right here. So we actually cut that part off, okay? So now that I know price times quantity, then I can go back to my consumer surplus formula, okay? And I can do the following. Gross consumer surplus for some quantity. I'm just going to make it up. Let's say it was 3, okay? But when we solved for everything, we got it to be 3, which would be what? 2 times alpha minus beta Q times Q divided by 2. And that will give me some number. So let's say, okay, that I know that my gross consumer surplus, and I'm making it up. Well, here, actually, I think I made one up. Let me just, yes, let me give you this one. So we can do one that's actually real, okay? Rather than me just making numbers up. All right, so let's look at this demand schedule here, and I think I had just shown it to you. okay, where this is 40 and this is 400, okay? And we let marginal cost equal, if I remember, was 10 cents, which then also equaled the price, okay? And so we came in here like that. Let me do a different color. So we came in here like this, okay? So this we said was 10 cents, okay? Now, what did we do? We took, since we knew the demand schedule was P equals 40 minus 0.1 Q, and all right, and since I also know that Q equals 400 minus 10P, all right, but I know P was 0.10, okay? So that then allowed me to solve for Q of 300, okay? So this now became 300 right here. So this is, oops, sorry. This now is 300. So this part of it now is 3,000, okay? So that's 3,000. And then when I calculate my gross consumer surplus, okay, using my formula, the gross consumer surplus when I did it was 7,500. So now I can set my fee. So now I know everything I need to know. All right. So my profit, not profit, but Elliot, this answers your question. My total revenue now. So another way to think of it is my total revenue now is from my fee A plus the price times the quantity, the usage component. So in my case, in our case now, we know the usage component is 3,000, okay? And I also knew that gross consumer surplus when what's the case? When it is the case that Q is 300 and P equals 0.10, okay? So gross usage is 3,000, and at Q equals 300 and P equals 0.10, gross consumer surplus was 7,500. What should I set the fee at then to capture everything? What should the fee be? Anyone? You know. So if this total area here, is 7,500, and at 10-cent usage fee, I get 300 usage, then the revenue part from usage only is 3,000. And what do I set the fee at? Any thoughts? Yep, thanks, Elliot. 4,500. Now, do you see that that is going to give me 3,000 more in revenue than I would have gotten from doing first-degree price discrimination? Do you see that? Everybody okay? Does everybody see that? So first-degree price discrimination would have only given me the 4,500. I would have not gotten the 3,000 additional. Monopoly would have simply given me a particular price and a particular quantity. I'm not going to solve it. You can solve it. Okay? All right? But two-part pricing gave me an additional 3,000 in revenue. Now, what's missing? What is missing, and I'm not talking about, but you'll have to address it. So essentially, what we have then is we have to then calculate profit. Okay. So the profit would be, okay, our total revenue, our total, okay, the fixed fee plus the usage, okay. So that, and it turns out to be what? Gross consumer surplus, and in our case for 300 units. Then the profit is going to be the number of units, which we said was 300, times the marginal cost, okay, that's the variable cost. This is variable cost, minus, again, I'll just put, I'll put theta, where theta equals the fixed cost. And that then would generate our profit. So we've sort of we didn't calculate it, but we could. And we do know what marginal cost is. Marginal cost, I made it up, was 0.1, 0.10, okay? So we could actually go back and now and calculate the profitability from engaging in this activity, okay? Now, what is the point of it? Right. Let me see if I can share something with you. And let me come back over here. And where did I put it? Okay. I don't want to do that one. All right. So isn't that interesting? I lost all my, okay. That's interesting. I had a whole bunch of my, I'm going to have to go one other place then. I lost all of I'd uploaded a whole bunch of PDFs to show you, and they all seem to have disappeared on me. That's very interesting. All right, I'll talk less about it and then show you one. So let me pull down a little bit and come back up here, so hang on a second. So I want to go back to doc sharing and just tell you where I'm at. I'm in doc sharing, and I put a new category down at the bottom called pricing with power. And I think what it's called, I'll have to look at it, but I'm going to open it and see if it's the one I want. Yeah, nope, that isn't the one I want. Okay, so we'll cancel that one. Here's the one I want. I think, no, that's, all right, here's the one I want. So now I'm going to share this one with you. Okay. So we'll come over here. I actually had it all along. And we'll bring it back over here, sorry. All right, so I'm coming back up here, and now I'm going to share it with you. This is not something, doing this two-part pricing like this, or multiple-part pricing, isn't something that you can just do off the top of your head. It's generally computationally done, okay? But what I want you to see, okay, well, interesting. All right. Let's try this one. Yeah, this is the one. Okay. So this is some demand schedule that we've estimated. Okay. Now, what's interesting here, so here is the fee, here's the usage component. Now, what do you notice about this demand schedule here that I've made up or we've used here, that I've copied here? What's odd about it? Anything odd about it? But no, look. So see this point, and then this point, and this point, and then this point, this point. It's not linear. Can you all see it?
Dr. Schiff, I'm not able to see anything.
Oh, heck, you guys can't see it? That's terrible. All right, so let me stop sharing. I'll stop sharing and then see if I can share it again. Thanks for telling me. So let's see if we can share it again. And, okay, so let me see if I can share it again. All right. What happens is when I try to share these with you, it doesn't tell me what they are. All right, so let's do that. Okay, let me try this one. We'll see. Hopefully it's the right one. Okay, can you all see, can you see this at all, what I'm showing you now? Okay, so you kind of see my whole computer screen, right? You probably see me there too, okay. So, do you see what's sort of different here is that this demand schedule simply is not linear. Okay, it's not a linear demand schedule. And computationally, that poses some additional problems for us. But what I wanted to show you here was that what are we looking at as we think about this two-part tariff? Here we're looking at the simplest situation, a single customer or a single group of customers, all who have a demand schedule that looks like that. And we're thinking about, okay, we're thinking about what is the best profit I can generate and how do I decide what the price and the quantity is for that best profit, okay? So what we have is a bunch of potential prices and a bunch of potential quantities. And that's usually how these computer programs work in the real world, okay? So this is our consumer surplus using this demand schedule here. This would be the price and quantity result. That's that, all right? This would be the difference between consumer surplus and price, okay? And so this is our variable cost, marginal cost, which here is U times Q, okay? So this would be the maximum fee that I could charge, and this is profitability. Now what I want to show you then, by just looking at profitability, okay, we should charge $15 price, and at $15 price we would get usage up to $7, okay? And therefore 7 times 15 would turn out to be 105. So this part here then would be 105 at usage of 7, okay? And then this part here at usage of 7 would be $72.55, and therefore my total profit is 57.5, 57.50. But wait a minute, let me ask you something. Oh, you all can't see anything at all now? You can't see anything? Okay, so hang on. So what I'm going to try to do, that's terrible. And I had these so I would hope. So I'm going to stop sharing and we'll come back here. Okay. So essentially, let me go over here and open one other thing and then see if there's anything I can do that would allow me to copy it over. And I think that's not going to happen. So here's what I'm going to quickly do. So what are we thinking about? So if we're looking at can I use the snipping tool? Okay. Let me see if I can snip it out of here. Make a web note. Okay. All right, so it's not letting me, I don't know where that is in the PDF thing. So that's what happens when you have an old professor. It's not letting me snip it out. Okay, so, okay, I probably don't have it. Well, I probably have it, but I have nowhere. So here's all I want to show you then. So let me just quickly do this. All right, and I'll change the color. And to give you an idea of, so you've seen the mechanics of it, but it gives you the impression that it's easier to do than what it actually is. It's very difficult computationally, okay? So what I'm going to do is that what we would have here, okay, so I'm going to write it in. So what we would have is price and quantity, okay? And then what we would have down here, and we keep on going. So let me then do this part, okay? And I'm just going to put in some prices. So we have different prices and quantities, okay? And I'm not going to put them all in, okay? So I'm just, okay, so these prices would be $35, okay? $30, $25, okay, $20, $15, and I'll just put 10 in. Now the associated quantities are 0, 2, okay, 3, 6, 7, and 7.5. Now, what is it that we're most interested in all of this? We're interested in 3 additional pieces of information, okay? Actually 4. So let me come down here, okay? So we're interested in 4 additional pieces of information. So let me come this way with it. All right, and we'll come all the way down here, all the way down here, all the way down here. Same thing here, and all the way down here, okay? So the first piece of information we want is our usage. So it's essentially price times quantity, P times Q. Okay, now what is that? So let's go back and look. What I'm talking about there is this part here. Okay, that's what we're talking about with our P times Q. So all right. And we also have, so P times Q, and let's just put some of those in. 0, 0, not 0, 0, 60, sorry. 0, 60, 75, okay? And we can put other numbers in. Doesn't matter at this point. Then what I wanted to look at would be the potential fee I could charge, all right? And then I'd want to also look at profit, so just to give you an idea, okay? So I'd also want to know what my gross consumer surplus is minus the, all right, so I'm just going to call that my fee, F, okay? And then certainly one of the things I'd want to know is profit. Now when you do all of this together using this demand schedule, okay, what we learned was the gross consumer surplus, okay, the gross consumer surplus was 177.5, okay, so right here, gross consumer surplus for that structure there was 177.5. What structure? Quantity of 7, price of 15, okay? Now, what was my profit, okay? And I'm just calling profit Y, okay? So my profit was 57.5. I just want to show you one more thing. So in other words, what you end up having to do in this kind of work is you have to have a computer program that calculates all of this. What? Gross consumer surplus. What else? Price, quantity. What else? The fee that you can charge. What else? Variable cost. What else? Profit. So I now just wanted to show you one other thing, okay, from this calculation. So we have a situation when we're looking at profit at 15 and 7 was 57.5, but profit at 10 and 7.5, okay, 10 and 7.5 is 58.7. So why did I not pick a combination of 10 and 7.5? Why did I pick a combination of 10 and 7? Why did I do that? Because there's no such thing as half of a, no, well, you're close, but no, it's a half a unit, right? These are physical, okay? So I'm not going to buy half a jacket. I'm not going to go and use half of the half an hour or whatever, okay? I'm not going to rent half of a car, okay? So that's the reason here that we ended up, even though 58.7 was higher profit, you have to have whole units So you have to pay attention to that. If you can have partial units, then it would have been 10 and 7.5 because profit was higher. But if you have whole units, then it was 15 and 7. That was the only point, just to make sure that whatever it is you're talking about, if whole units matter, then you have to have whole units, okay? All right, any other questions, any thoughts about, okay. So there's a lot more to say about bundling. We're not going to get into it. So what are the things else that we could say about it that would be interesting to us? Again, why are we interested in it at all? We are interested in it because it allows us to capture more consumer surplus, leave less money on the table. That's why we're interested in it. We have to have some market power to be able to do it, and that's what we've been talking about all along. Now, there are some things we don't necessarily need to know. All we need to know is that there are people who would take advantage of this two-part tariff system that we're getting ready to institute. Okay? We don't particularly care who they are, but we do need to know that they do have demand schedules of certain type, okay, and that they would be willing to pay these different prices. So in the end result, then where it gets a little bit more complicated, and I'm only going to mention it. Okay, so it's not helping me. So hang on a second. All right. Now maybe it'll help it. Okay. Nope, still not helping me. Okay. So the first thing is of interest and makes it more complicated. Okay, one menu, which is one fee, one tariff. Okay, so we said FA and then PA. So one menu, one fee, one group of consumers, okay, all the same. That's the simplest situation. Then you could look at situations where you have, again, one menu. What is that? F and PA. But now you have two groups. And then what can you do? You can expand the groups beyond two. And then what's the third thing that I could put up here? I could now have one menu, two groups, not toe groups, but two groups or many groups, okay? Different demand, okay? It just simply gets more complicated, but you can make more money. The final thing that is of interest here, and this is what you see and what you're used to. This is exactly what the Verizon, the cable companies, some of the gym memberships and things like that, this is exactly what they're doing. What they're offering is multiple menus. What does that mean? Many fee and usage combinations. We'll call it combos. And that gets very interesting and a lot of fun. Okay. And again, remember, they don't have to know who the people are that would pick a different fee bundle, okay? But they just simply have to know they exist. So let me show you one final thing and then we'll move away. Let me take a drink and then we'll move away from this, okay? But it's very interesting. Okay, so let's look at one final situation. Not situation, but one final graph. So let's look here, okay? And what I'm going to put up is something like this, and then something like this. Okay. So now I'm going to tell you what they are. Okay. So let me switch. Okay. So this again is price, and this is quantity. So this is fee A plus PB QB. So that's one fee structure. This, not B, it's A. Sorry, A. Okay, everything is A. This is FB plus PB QB. Now, take a look at this point right here. This point right here is quite interesting. At that point, the consumer, in looking at the menu, we'll just, for lack of a better thing, we'll call this Q hat. At this point, the customer, whoever these customers are, is indifferent between the two bundles. But now, notice, if I, and this is the key to it, if I prefer usage less than Q hat, okay, Q hat, then which fee structure would I prefer? B, right? My fees are smaller. Now, my usage fee is higher, but my entry fee is smaller. But if I want a lot of usage, okay, as in the situation A, then I prefer the fee structure FA plus PB plus QB. And then I could put other ones in here too, and essentially that is the key. And when you get to these multiple menu situations, that's literally what is going on. They don't know who the person, well, of course, they don't have to know who the person is, but today with the internet and everything, they have a pretty good idea who these different well, that's not true. Totally true. What's true is they have a very good idea of the characteristics of the people who inhabit the different fixed and usage fee menu options. Does that make sense to you? And therefore, they know it's profitable to offer that fee and usage fee option, okay? And that's what makes this really, really interesting. But as you can see, given my really horrible chart in the previous page here, you can't solve this sort of stuff by drawing a graph like this. You end up, particularly if you're doing 5 or 6 or 7 of these, you have to end up doing it computationally, okay? You can do it in Excel or other software. But so that's basically what I wanted to say about about two-part tariff. Okay, do you understand? And not that you could do it, but do you understand in principle how it works? Okay. Any questions before we move? Okay. Now, the only other thing we want to move to then, right now, in finishing up then, is to go back to our, so we've now done more on second degree, we've done 2-part. So now we're going to do something called bundling, okay? And let me come back here. We're going to do bundling, okay? And let me switch my notes out so that if I'm going to do an example, I don't screw it up, okay? Now, in many ways, when we particularly graph bundling, you're going to be surprised it may look very similar, okay? But bundling or tying are similar, but a little bit different. And the truth of the matter is that they are very widely used forms of price discrimination, second degree. And oftentimes what you hear them referred to, particularly out there on the street, out there among pricing managers, is you hear it referred to as quantity discounting. Okay, quantity discounting. Now, it works because the bundle price, the price of the bundle, is below the sum of the individual prices. Okay, so it's below the sum of the individual prices, but the bundle price is above the price of any one of the commodities, of any single commodity. And the crucial insight here is negative relationships to each other. Okay, so bundling. Now, bundling is the case of 25 rolls of toilet paper. Okay, tying is the computer monitor and the computer. So let's look at both of them. I don't want to spend too much time on them because we've really talked about them already. And so as we think about what they can do in terms of the bundle, that a bundle must contain at least 2 units of the same product or service to be referred to as bundle of the same thing. Tying is that the bundle must contain 2 different but related goods or services. So remember, a bundle can be a service. It doesn't have to be a physical goods. So again, what we say is a seller is practicing bundling if he sells packages containing at least 2 of the same thing. The seller is practicing tie-in sales or tying if they're offering a bundle that contains at least 2 different products or services. Okay? So in principle, then, what's going on here is that the seller offers a package containing several units of the same product or service. Now, the seller must select a package price for the bundle containing 2 units, however many, okay, of the good, and that price is what we call the bundle price, and the key issue here is the bundle price is indeed profit maximizing. Now, here's where it links back to what we've just talked about. So we're offering this bundle, okay? We're offering at a bundle price. In many cases, you could buy these things individually. So what's a bundle? A Happy Meal, okay? So you go, or the combo meal, that's a bundle. It is also possible to go in and buy a single hamburger. So again, you go in and you buy the hamburger, you get the French fries, and you get the drink. Now, for bundling of this type to work very well, there has to be differing valuations of the hamburger, the fries, and the soft drink. Okay? Some people like French fries more, so then they do the Coke or the hamburger, and vice versa. Now, given the bundle that you're offering, and remember, these are negatively related or correlated. So some people value French fries more than hamburgers, and some people value hamburgers more than French fries. But both of them are looking at buying the same bundle with the same units inside that bundle. Okay? Now, the consumer then weighs the consumer surplus by buying the entire bundle against the alternatives. Now, this is where it does get interesting. In the case of McDonald's and some others, the alternative would be to buy them one individually, singly. Okay. Same thing when if you look at the furniture stores where you can buy this room of furniture, but in some cases you can only buy that bundle, or in other cases, yes, you can buy the bundle, or you can buy the couch individually. So a pure bundle means you can only buy the bundle. A mixed bundle means you could buy the bundle or parts of the bundle without having to buy the whole thing. Now, the crucial issue of this is again what we're now familiar with from doing two-part pricing. Okay, that what has to happen for the consumer to buy. Okay, is the following: that the gross consumer surplus, okay, for the bundle must be greater than or equal to the bundle price. Well, let's call that Q. Okay. If that's the case, then the consumer will consider buying the bundle. If it isn't the case, the consumer won't buy the bundle. Okay. Now, let me show you a quick, simple version of it. And I won't put any numbers up, but literally you'll see how it works, and you're going to go, well, wait a minute, that looks awfully. Well, actually, if I go over here, let me look at one other place. I think I do have another example. So let me look here real fast. I think I do. So let me come back here. Yep, I think I've got it here. Or not. Okay. Otherwise, when I make things up, they don't necessarily turn out right. Okay, so let's look at this situation. So we're talking about a bundle of something. All right, so let's go back to what we know. Let's go back and then draw in our demand schedule and everything we did before. So we're going to come in here and do that. All right, here's our demand schedule. Okay, now what we're going to put in here before we put in marginal cost, but right now what we're going to do is put in just the unit price if you buy them by themselves. Okay, so I'm going to make that up and put it in here. Okay, so now this is the unit price. I'm just going to say that it's, for lack of a better word, it's 2. So price equals marginal cost, and it equals 2. And let's say we have a demand schedule that looks something like this. Well, that's 10, and then this is 10. And notice then the slope is 1. Okay. So using everything that we've known, just like we did in the menu pricing, then where price equals marginal cost, that sets the quantity. Okay. So what we would do would be we would have a demand schedule, okay, where price equals 10 minus what? 1Q. Okay. All right. And so we can also then solve for the reverse of that. I'm not going to. But when price equals marginal cost, given the demand schedule that I've drawn here, so quantity demanded equals 10 minus P, okay? So when price is 2, then I know quantity demanded is 8, okay? Just like before. Not any different than what we did before. Okay, right there is 8. Now, what I know then is that this value here is 16. And then I can also calculate the up part here is 32. So now what can I do? I can bundle 8 of whatever these things are at a price where if they had to buy them individually of 2, I can bundle that and sell it at a price of 48. Now, what have I done? I've done the same thing, but unlike the situation in two-part pricing, where I explicitly had 2 different usage fees. I'm not, do you see buying rolls of toilet paper? I guess this sounds gross. It doesn't make any sense to have a per roll usage fee, right? So it wouldn't, in the kinds of situations where we bundle like this, it simply doesn't make any sense to have a usage fee like this, so that essentially then we create a bundle price. And the argument would be that the customer compares the consumer surplus, okay, from buying 8 of these against the alternative of buying 8 of them one at a time. And as long as that person ends up having either 0 or positive consumer surplus, the customer will buy the bundle. Not everybody, but some customers will buy and some customers won't. And this is very much exactly what we saw with two-part pricing, okay, except you can't do the two-part part, okay? Does that make sense? And I want to see if there's one other one. Let me look at this one here. Okay, all right. Does everybody understand that? Now, this is the simple case. Is it possible now? So essentially, let's look at what we're talking about. Let's think a little bit about consumer psychology. So we've been throwing around some words. So this is the price, okay? But we've been throwing around something called the reservation price for C. So now let's see what the consumer would do. if my reservation price, so I'm consumer one, and what I'm saying is, if consumer one's reservation price is greater than the actual price they have to pay in the market, will this person buy or not? What's the answer? Yes, Laura's right. David's right. They'll buy. Okay? Now, let's look at the other situation for consumer one. If the reservation price is less than the market price, okay, then the person isn't going to buy this. So now when we start thinking about bundles of things, okay, and we start thinking about, so we have to think about two possibilities here, okay? Possibility one is that we are talking about, as we were talking about here, 8 of these, but they're all the same thing. And so my choice would be buying 1 or buying 2, all right? So that ultimately what I want to think about is the reservation price for, and I'm going to just do this as either 1 unit or commodity 1, plus the reservation price for the second commodity or the second unit, okay? Now, if those are greater than the bundle price, okay, will I buy? Yes. Yes, I will. I won't? Yeah, well, I will buy, okay? And so that ends up being the key idea, particularly now when we get in, and we're not going to talk about it, but it's out there, what are called mixed bundles, where you have maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different components within that bundle, okay? So this gets the psychology, and I wanted to show you this, but somehow or another it's not letting me do that. So let me think if I can just let me see what this one is. Okay, I'm going to get rid of all the others and see if it'll let me share this one with you. Okay, let me try it. Combine. Okay. All right, I'll make this a little bit bigger. Okay, a little bit bigger here. Okay. Okay, let's see if it'll let me share this with you. Well, it doesn't seem to want to let me. What it's doing is giving me a huge number of these, and none of them. All right, let's try this one. All right, can you guys see this at all? Okay, so this is the situation of what we call mixed bundling, and it's kind of interesting, okay? And all we're trying to do here, and don't get it looks formidable, but what it's really setting up is the relationship between the price of something, its reservation price, okay, and particularly now the bundle price. So here's good 1. You can see me. Can you see me pointing to good 1? Okay, here's good 2. Here's the bundle price. Okay, here's the actual price. All right. So if we just look in this quadrant here, notice the reservation price is up here. Okay. Okay, and reservation price is here. So when we see that the reservation price of good 1 and good 2, okay, in this area here, we're not buying either any one of the goods or the bundle, because why? My reservation price is below what I would have to pay for it. Do you all see what's happening here? So in this case, whatever this bundle is, or whatever these goods are, given, and this is what you're trying to sort out as the seller, okay? So what you're hoping is that there's a very few number of people that fall within this category here, okay? And what you might want to do, again, is in this situation here, notice right here, here we're buying the bundle, here we're buying the bundle, here we're buying the bundle, and here we're buying the bundle for slightly different reasons. Here I don't, if within this blue area here, I'm not buying good 1 separately, okay? Here I buy the bundle, but I don't buy good 2 separately, okay? And then here I buy the bundle, okay? But customers, this is, note the equation is not true. Customers make their own bundles by buying good 1 and good 2. All I wanted you to see here in terms of this idea of bundling is this relationship between a couple, not a couple, but some very interesting ideas. And if you get into bundling, you have to pay attention to it. What is that? It is first the reservation prices. You have to have some idea of what those are. And consumers are unwilling to reveal that, but you still have to have some conjecture about that. You have to have okay, am I back? It looks like I lost my, can you all hear me? Okay. Somehow or another I lost that. Okay, that's fine. But so the idea that we were looking at there is that what we're trying to pay attention to as we think about putting bundles together, and it also can be very complex to do. In some cases, some formulas can help you do it. In other cases, it's trial and error. I mean, I've always said that pricing is not science, it's a great deal of art. But what that chart was telling us is that we have to pay attention to the bundle price. We have to pay attention to the market price of whatever that good is. We have to pay attention to the reservation price of whatever those goods are. And when it gets to be more than one good, then we have R1, R2, R3. And as we think about that, that's what's important. Now, why? Because we want to sell the bundle. Why? Because just as in two-part pricing, when we sell the bundle, we're capturing all of this. And therefore, we're about doing this, okay, to capture as much the maximum consumer surplus we can. Otherwise, there's no reason to go into bundle pricing. Does that make sense? There's a lot written on it. It's quite interesting, quite challenging, but it's not pure science either, okay? But when you solve some of it, it can be computationally challenging. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about for one final thing, and then that's tie-in. So I just want to give you a quick look at tie-in sales. So we'll put together, so tie-in is just like bundling, but it's two different things now, all right? It's two different things. So I'm going to put a table together, and I'm terrible at this. Okay, so what I want to do is, okay, we'll come down here, and then I'm going to go across here, and I'm going to change my color real fast. And I'm going to come here, okay. And then we'll come down here, change my color. We'll come down here, okay. Okay, my wife just came home, so I'm going to shut my door. Hang on a second. Okay. So what I'm looking at now, I'm now not bundling 8 rolls of toilet paper. I'm not setting up a two-part tariff system, multiple menu two-part tariff system. I'm now tying together two different things or two different services into a single bundle where the purpose of it is to extract all the consumer surplus I can. Now, okay, so let's let this be, let me make sure that I'm back here. Let's let this be consumer. That's consumer 1 and consumer 2. Okay, let's now say that this is the computer. Okay, and let's say that this is the monitor. All right. Now, looking at the individuals involved, let's argue, and I'm just making it up, that consumer 1 values the monitor at $2,000. That's the the computer. The reservation price for consumer 1 for the monitor is $200. So over 200, the consumer 1 won't buy. Now, consumer 2 values or reservation price is $1,500, but $300 for the monitor. So you see where this is also the negative again. Same thing as the valuing the French fries and the hamburger or whatever. So certainly what we could then do if we wanted to ensure in terms of simple monopoly pricing if we wanted to. So one choice, so plan A, let's say, would be, now watch, to sell the monitor, again, you could sell everything separately, but as a bundle, okay? As a bundle, what could we do? We could sell, under plan A, the bundle price would be $1,700. That way, what happens? Both consumers buy. So clear? Both consumers buy, and we generate $3,400. Okay, I'll put it in a different color. We generate $3,400 as a result. Now, I don't know what my profit is because I don't know what the cost of all of this stuff is. So at this point, I'm just assuming that there's no cost to doing this. Okay? But now, so when we look at the total value to consumer 1, the total value to consumer 1 for this bundle is $2,200. For consumer 2, the total value is $1,800. Okay? Now, what did we do before? What we did was we sold the computer separately at $1,500, and therefore both customers bought. And we sold the monitor at $200. And again, remember, so looking at our reservation price, so let's just look at customer 2. Okay, let me change the color. So for customer 2, and we're looking at the monitor, okay? So customer 2's reservation price is $300, but we sold the monitor at $200, and therefore customer 2 buys, and so does customer 1. But now when we look at the total valuation, and we tie them together now as a bundle, so plan B, okay, B for bundle is, guess what? We now sell it at $1,800, okay? And we generate $3,600. And notice now, the reason we were able to do that is exactly because even though consumer 1 rather, only has a reservation price of $200, okay? So here comes the key. The bundle price is $1,800, okay, which is still below the highest, his reservation price for the for the computer. So do you see how it works? That then allows us to extract an additional $200 off of selling them at $1,500 and for the computer and $200 for the monitor. And so by taking advantage of now tie-in sales, we make more money. Okay? So you see how, again, it doesn't mean that you necessarily know who these people are. You don't. So when you look at the computer monitor combination, when you go to Sam's or Costco or Fry's or wherever, so they don't know that you are going to buy it. They do know that someone will find this bundle, and a significant number of people will find this bundle at $1,800 attractive, and enough of them will find it attractive to go ahead and actually purchase the bundle. Though some people might, again, try, shop around and try to find a monitor for $200 and a computer for $1,500. But this is another way for us to extract more consumer surplus. Does it make sense? And remember the negative correlation, did you see it? Okay, the negative correlation between the monitor and the computer for the different consumers. Okay. Now, sorry, you can imagine that you're looking at a bunch of different consumers and and as you tie more and more things into the purchase, it can get quite confusing. I think this is, again, a simple example of it. I think you find it very interesting. What I'm hoping to do I could just ask you, would you all find it interesting to actually get into, to take a separate course in pricing and get into some of this stuff in more detail and develop some software develop some Excel programs where you could actually do this? Would you all find, some of you find that interesting? Okay. Okay, well, yeah, marketing always wants to know about, yes, that's absolutely true. Okay. All right, so now one final thing for tonight, and I'll probably beaten you to death, but let me go back to our first page. So we've now done this completely, okay? We're going to do third-degree price discrimination right now. The other pricing issues, and we will talk about them later on, but there's really one other major pricing issue that we really want to look at, and we will deal with it next week. But that's the question. I'm going to introduce it right now just very quickly, and then we'll get into third-degree price discrimination. But the other pricing issue that is of interest to us is what's called transfer pricing. Okay, and the best example I can give, the best way to explain that to you is this. Okay, what we're really talking about is internal pricing. So, and the best example I can give you is that when I was at Coors. So when I was at Coors, we had a bottle company and we had a can company, sorry. We had a can company, okay? But the brewery, okay, made beer and then put the beer, okay, into the bottles and cans. So now the question though, so the bottle company and the can company were what we called upstream to the brewery. The brewery put the beer in the bottles and cans and then marketed it and distributed it, okay? So the question then is how, it's a really interesting question. Do you allow the bottle company to independently profit maximize? Do you allow the can company to independently profit maximize? Or do you pay attention, I guess I can't spell bottle company correctly, or do you coordinate the production of cans and bottles to sufficiently support the canning and bottling of beer and selling of beer so that the overall profitability of the company is enhanced, but not necessarily the overall, and you don't want the bottle company and the can company to not be efficient, but they may not need to profit maximize, because profit maximizing includes overhead costs and things that don't necessarily need to be added additionally when you bottle and can the beer and then sell it. So this coincidence of wants and this idea of how you handle movement of products internally, which also leads to the make or buy question. Would it have been better for us to sell our can company and our bottle company and buy bottles and cans in the open market? So these are the kinds of issues that are very interesting in a manufacturing context, and so we'll talk about those a little bit next week before we get into game theory. So in the time that we have tonight, I just want to then finish up with, so we'll go back. I want to finish up. So we'll do third degree. So we've already talked a little bit about this. Okay, so we've done that. We're going to do this one now. The interdependence models, it will work when we do game theory. I do want to talk about this just real quickly, as long as I've got you. What I was thinking of doing, because we do meet Thursday, and Thursday is Thanksgiving. I already am teaching Tuesday and Wednesday night. So what I was thinking I would do is just go ahead and come online Monday night and record a session, and then you could watch it. If you can't be there Monday night, fine, but you go ahead and watch it at your leisure. I really hate to miss, because we're behind ourselves because of the change in faculty issues, but I really don't want next week to, the Thanksgiving week to go by and not have the opportunity to do something. So if it's okay, unless you are just against it, I'm going to go ahead and be online 6:30 the Monday night of Thanksgiving week, and then I'll just keep on going from where we were at the end of next week, and then you'll be able to watch it at your leisure before the following Thursday. Is that okay? Is anybody have a great deal of heartburn or anything about that? Okay. All right. Good. And that way, that allows us to kind of stay up, and I'm still fairly comfortable. There's some things that normally when I teach this class we won't cover, but on the other hand, I think when we're done with this, you'll probably have gotten 85–90% of what I normally do, at least an introduction to it, and it'll give you an idea of the richness of economics as it helps you become, to be a manager and that sort of thing. So I am fairly comfortable we'll be where I hope where we should be. Okay, so now we want to look at the final one. What final one? We're now back to the situation of what's the third approach to trying to capture more consumer surplus rather than now doing first-degree price discrimination or second-degree price discrimination. Because again, the information required for first degree is pretty restrictive, not so much in second degree, but a little bit more restrictive in third degree. But again, you can see in third degree, this is where we're talking about on-peak, off-peak. We're talking about hotel rooms. We're talking about airline seats. We're talking about all that, senior citizen discounts, all that kind of thing. Being able to create segments within a market and fence those segments, and then by creating those segments, be able to make more money than you would have been able not to. Now remember, I'm not creating fences when I was doing two-part tariff or tying. I'm just allowing the customer to reveal their preferences to me when they buy the bundle or they buy the tie-in. Okay. First degree price discrimination requires a great deal of information. It's not often seen. I guess the closest might be negotiating for a new car, okay, or even a used car. But more common is third degree price discrimination, which is where I'm able to now segment markets based on age, or based on demographics, based on region, based on time of day, based on elasticity. I'm able to segment markets that way. And I'm able to then, when I do that, make more money than simply offering a single uniform price to everybody in the marketplace. Okay? So the information necessary to do this is not as demanding as first degree, but more demanding than second. Does that help? So see where we're at. All right, so let me just sort of give you the simple graphic. Let me take a picture. Let me take a drink. And just wanted to make sure it is water. Okay, so not, somebody said, are you drinking gin? No, I'm drinking water. Okay, so let's now take a look at that situation. Remember, we're creating segments and fences, all that sort of thing. And this is crucially the case now, and more so even in two-part and tie-in. I've got to keep the fences up, and I've got to keep the different segments, however many of them I create, I've got to keep them from engaging each other in a similar transaction, okay? Because then that gives them the benefit and not me. So let's now look at, we'll come back and create a simple situation, okay? The first situation, and we'll do standard demand and supply schedules, okay? So now remember, I'm a monopolist. So let's now look at our two favorite markets. Our first favorite market, we'll call this is price, and this is quantity. This is price, and this is quantity, price, and quantity. So let's let this be our favorite market A, and this is our other favorite market B. And let's just look at a demand schedule, okay, in market A, but it's going to be important when we look at it, okay? That's the demand schedule. We also know, remember, I showed you that the marginal revenue is twice the slope of demand. So marginal revenue then looks something like this, even twice the slope. Okay. Then let's look at another market in which we have a demand schedule that might look something like that. And then we have a marginal revenue schedule that might, again, look something like that. So that's our market. All right. Now, let's look at the monopolist. So that's what I am. I'm a monopolist. Now, not selling in a single market. I'm trying to sell in more than two fenced or segmented markets. So when I add my demand schedules up, they look kind of funny because these are different slopes. So in one case, in this case, it might look a little bit like that. And then the marginal revenue schedule is going to roughly look exactly the same. And so it's going to look something like that. Okay, again, twice the slope. And so now let's just label everything. Okay. So this is demand in A, marginal revenue in A, marginal revenue in B, demand in B. Okay, and then we're going to call this demand in the monopoly, marginal revenue in the monopoly. Okay. Now let's just assume that we know what our marginal cost looks like. Because we're a monopolist, so we're just going to draw it in. Let's say it looks something like this. Okay? So that's marginal cost. So I'll write that in. So this is marginal cost. Okay? Now, here's my challenge. My challenge is I'm a single plant monopolist. So I'm going to produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So clearly you can see then that's right here. Okay? That means in terms of what I'm producing, let me change the color, I am producing Q monopoly. Now, I could have gone up here and come over here and set the monopoly price PM here, but I don't want to do that. What I want to do is divvy up QM across these two different markets because the elasticities are different and charge different prices in both of these markets. Does everybody understand that? And then keep them separated from each other. Okay, everybody, thanks, Laura. Everybody got it? Okay. Asha, Anna? Okay, Elizabeth? Okay, thanks, Peter. Okay, great. All right, so let's look at it graphically. It's very straightforward graphically. Oh, this is illegible, so hang on a second. So this is marginal revenue. So now let's look at market B. In market B, then what am I going to do? I'm going to equate my market B marginal revenue with the monopolist marginal cost here, and then I'm going to sell it at this price here. Then in market A, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost, which is there, and then sell it at that price in market A. Okay? So let's label some things so we know what we've got now. We know that we have QB, and we know that we have QA. We know that QA plus QB equals QM. Now, what I'm comparing this to is, all right, so now I know PA times QA is my total revenue in market A, plus PB times QB, which is my total revenue in market B. And the reason I'm doing this is because this is the case. Therefore, I can simply make more money. Also notice, because of the elasticities, are you ready? You can see it. PA is greater than PB, and that's why we have to put that fence up. We have to put that fence up to prevent people in market B who bought at a lower price selling to people in market A, and that's why you have segments and fencing. Okay? Does that all make sense? All right. So let's do a calculus example, and it'll take us about 10 minutes, and then we're done for tonight. I need to take another drink. All right. Okay. So let's go, and we'll come back to this when we're done. Okay? This page here. So now what we're going to do is the following. Okay? I'm going to let me change the color. So we're going to first take a look at market A. All right. First take a look at market A. Okay? A, and then I'm going to look at market B. Okay? So here's what I know. And I have to know this, okay? QA equals, okay, 30 minus PA. I estimated this based on statistical, and I can just reverse it. PA then equals 30 minus QA. I also know, because I've done research and I took stat here, I know that QB then equals 22 minus PB, and PB equals 22 minus QB. Okay? Therefore, I know what marginal revenue is. Marginal revenue, remember, or total revenue rather, is simply price times quantity. Okay? But I know what this is here. It's right here. Okay? So therefore, I know that total revenue then is 30 QA minus QA squared. That's for A. Total revenue for B is 22 QB minus QB squared. Therefore, marginal revenue, taking our derivative, which you're all good at now, is 30 minus 2QA, and marginal revenue B equals 22 minus 2QB. Okay? Now, going back to this graph here, okay, what you can see is that the marginal revenue I'm making in both markets is exactly the same. It's that much. It's that much. Why is it the same? Because if I was making more, if I could make more marginal revenue in market A, I'd sell less in market B and more in A. When do I stop shifting back and forth? When the marginal revenues in both markets are the same. So let's now set those marginal revenues equal to each other, okay? And that then gives me, and you guys can work through the manipulation, it's pretty simple. So I'm just setting them equal to each other, okay? And then when you get done doing that, you get QA equals, okay, QB plus 4, okay? So now remembering our steps, just like we had before, we need total revenue, which and marginal revenue. We've got it. We also have the relationship between QA and QB that represent marginal revenue being exactly the same in both markets. I now need to generate something about cost. I've got to get my cost function. So I've been given, and I'll change the color now, I've been given that average total cost, okay, equals 2 plus, and if I remember right, yes, 0.1 Q total, because remember, that's associated over here. I'm not producing here. I'm only selling here. I'm only selling here. I'm not producing. I'm producing here. Okay? Set them equal to each other. Okay? So, coming back here. So when you set these two, this equal to this, and then put either QA or QB on one side, that's what you get. I just happen to put, no, they don't. Okay. Okay, actually they don't. So if I were, what I did was, so when I did that, I got minus 2QA equals minus 8 minus 2QB when I did it, okay, which then led me to that right there. Yeah, I don't want them to cancel out. Okay, so that's not what I want. Okay, because if they cancel out, then I've lost my what? I've lost my relationship between QA and QB where marginal revenue is the same. So I don't want them to cancel, okay? I don't want them to cancel out, okay? All right, so now given that I know that, I can get total cost, okay? Are you ready? I'm just looking at my notes so I don't screw it up. So I get total, so if I multiply average total cost times Q, that'll give me total cost. So total cost now is just simply 2 plus 0.1 Q total squared. Okay? Now, from a production point of view, here, I'm interested in total. But here I'm interested in B, and here I'm interested in A. Okay? So, thinking about that, so I get total cost. So what I'll have to do then is what? Okay, did you see my mistake? I made a mistake here, right? Because to get total cost, I multiplied this by QT. Yeah, I missed a QT. So it's QT. So total cost is 2QT plus 0.1 QT squared. Okay? So now, what's marginal cost? Okay, so marginal cost then is just our derivative. So let me put it in a different color. The marginal cost, so now the derivative of total cost with respect to quantity is marginal. So the derivative of 2Q is 2. So this is marginal. And then the derivative of 0.1 QT squared is, okay, plus 0.2 QT. Agreed? Am I okay? But now I don't want this. I want this here. I want this from a production point of view, but I need it now for a market point of view. I need to find this guy, and I need to find this guy. I know what this guy is. That's T. But I need to find this guy and this guy. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to rewrite marginal cost. Are you ready? So watch. So now I'm going to rewrite marginal cost as, guess what? 2 plus 0.2 times, guess what? QA plus QB. Now I have my B. And when I do that, I end up with marginal cost after I multiply everything out. I end up with marginal cost being, if I did it right, 0.4 QB, okay, plus 2, plus what did I get? Let me look at what I got. 2.8, I think. I'm still trying to see what, I can't even read my handwriting, so let me, it doesn't seem right. Okay, hang on just a second. What did I do? Okay, no, that is right. That is what I got, okay? Plus 2.8, okay? So that's marginal cost, okay? Now what am I going to do with it? So it's 0.4 QB equals 2.8. So coming back to a new page, marginal cost equals, okay, 0.4 QB plus 2.8. Okay, if I did that right. Oh, I missed a step. All right, so let's go back and let me show you the step that I missed. Okay, so marginal cost, and you're right, I screwed up. Marginal cost is 2 plus, okay, 0.2 QA, okay, plus 0.2 QB. So now what I want to do, though, I know something, all right? And what is it that I know? I know the relationship for QA and QB where marginal revenue A equals marginal revenue B. I know what that is. And if you'll remember, that's QA equals QB plus 4. So now what can I do? All right. So let's go back to what am I trying to do? So, because sometimes with the math you can get lost. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to figure out QA and QB here using the relationship that marginal revenue A equals marginal revenue B. This relationship here. Okay. I don't want just any QA and QB. I only want to consider the QA and QB where the marginal revenues are equal. So when I do the marginal cost function here, okay, that's generic marginal cost. Does everybody now understand? That's just generic marginal cost. That's not going to help me. I need this one here. Which one? This one, okay, which is this. So now what I'm going to do, and what I can do, is I can now solve for marginal cost in market A that equates marginal revenue to marginal cost. Okay, so let's do that. So now what I'm going to do then, I'm going to come back, and I now know that now I want to do marginal cost A or B. It doesn't matter. It looks like what I did was B. Okay? So marginal cost B would be 2 plus, now I've got, well, let's actually do it for A. Okay? So marginal cost, and it'll end up being B. So notice now I can immediately what? Take this number here and put it where? 0.2 times QA, which is QB plus 4, okay, now plus 0.2 QB. Because I'm interested in only the marginal cost relationships and only the marginal revenue relationships where they're equal. Or marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Do you see from the graph? I'm interested in only these points here. You see why I'm doing it that way now? That's all I'm interested in. I'm not interested in any other possibilities, okay? Because that's profit maximizing. So now when I do that, okay, I now get marginal cost B, okay, equaling, if you remember what I said, it equals 0.4 QB, okay, plus 2.8 if I did it right, okay? Now what am I going to do with that? Well, wait a minute. I know what marginal revenue B is. Don't I? Yes, I know marginal revenue B. Marginal revenue B, if I did it right, was 22, okay, minus 2 QB. Now what am I going to do? Set them equal to each other. Okay, so if I set them equal to each other, I get 4 QB plus 2.8 equals 22 minus 2 QB. QB then equals, if again I did it right, QB should be 12. 8, sorry. QB is 8. Okay? Now, is it, I'm having a hard time reading my own notes, so let me go back. I don't have it as 0.4. Let me just look real fast if I'm reading my notes right. So marginal cost is 0.4 QB plus 2.8. Okay? So it's right here. 0.4, and you're right. 0.4 here. Okay? So notice how I make mistakes, this teaching thing to make sure you understand. All right. So now what have we found? And we're almost done. We have found that QB, the share of total monopoly output produced in the monopoly factory, is where marginal cost, which we already found, the overall marginal cost function, if you'll remember, was, so again, marginal cost was 2 plus 0.2 QA plus 0.2 QB. So that's the marginal cost. But now I just simply have to get it in terms of either A or B, but I know how to do that. I can substitute QA, which equals QB plus 4, right? And then I set that equal to marginal revenue B equals marginal cost B. And I found that QB equaled 8. But I don't have to go through it the other way anymore. I don't have to go back to the beginning. I can now use this. Since I know what QB is, and I know that QA plus QB plus 4 is the profit max, is the marginal revenue equating relationship between QA and QB. Now that I know QB, then I also automatically then know what QA is. QA is 12. Total monopoly output is 20. Okay. Now then what do? I can now go back to the demand schedules and solve for prices. So I can go back here, all right? So I can go back here at the very beginning, all right? So QA is 12, then PA is what? If QA is 12, isn't it? Right? Wasn't I right? QA is 12. So looking right here, okay, looking right here, if QA is 12, then PA has to be 8 or 18. If this is 12, this is 30, has to be, thank you, Laura, has to be 18. So PA is 18. Now, QB is what? Let's go back and look. QB, if we solved it, QB was 8. Okay? QB was 8. Therefore, price is what? 22 minus 8. Okay? 22 minus 8 is more than 6, right? 14, excellent. So our price is there, our quantity. So now what can we calculate? Okay, so we can calculate. So notice what we now know. So let's go back. What do we now know? We also know PA. What did we decide PA was? 18. And we know PB. PB, I know we decided. PA was 12? Okay. Let's go back and look real fast. I don't remember. Is everybody okay? Is it 12? 18, I think. Yeah. So PA is 18. PA. So price is 18 for A. And what's the price for B? 14? Is that what we figured? Okay, 14. So now what is it that we know? Since we know PA and QA was what? 8? Was QB 8? Yes. So we know total revenue A, we know total revenue B. Given our cost functions, we can get total cost, and we can get, again, the sum total revenue. We can get profit, and we can even calculate elasticities. So this isn't that you could necessarily do it, but this is an introduction to what we'll be talking about in terms of yield management or revenue management. This is how price discrimination works, and to a degree, this is what Southwest Airlines is doing. This is what the hotels are doing. Okay, they're pricing this way, creating these segments, creating these fences, all because what? The revenue that they can make by doing this is greater than the revenue and profits that they can make than selling as a single price monopoly. All of this, of course, leaves one thing out which you guys talk about, so I don't have anything to say about it. But it does leave out one idea that we assume is not a negative. You sort that out in your accounting class. We are assuming that costs do not eat up all the revenue advantages from doing this sort of thing. If the cost eats up the revenue advantages of doing this, then you're back to a single price monopolist. Okay? So next week then we will do transfer pricing and then get into game theory, which I think is chapter 13, and talk a little bit about other forms of interdependent pricing, but we'll get into game theory next week and transfer pricing both. Okay? So I think that's it for the night. I think we covered quite a bit. Are you underwhelmed or overwhelmed? Underwhelmed. Sleepy eyes, I understand. Well, is this what you thought it was going to be, or more than this? Are you finding it interesting, uninteresting? Good. I hope you find it interesting. All right, then I will see you next week. Same time, same station. So remember, next week will be, good night to you guys. Thanks, Laura. All of you, remember next week is transfer pricing and game theory. All of you have a good night and a good rest of the week. Be sure to log out. Good night.